Hello folks, it's Jim Hansen, and the elephant in the room today is President Obama holding a foreign policy failure fest with Tom Friedman of the New York Times. Now if you're like me, you've got to be thinking, what an opportunity for mankind. I mean, how often can you get the smartest guy in the room with the smartest guy in the room? I mean, what brilliance are these two going to lay on us? Here's the problem though. I'm not going to dispute that they're smart, but smart is not wise, and that was the problem. Now, Obama displayed a tremendous grasp of the facts. He was deeply schooled on a number of foreign policy issues with no notes at hand. The problem was the stunningly dense, naive, even foolish conclusions he drew from those facts.
I'll give you an example of a lesson I had to learn that still has ramifications to this day. And that is our participation in the coalition that overthrew Gaddafi in Libya. Then it's the day after Gaddafi's gone, when everybody's feeling good and everybody's holding up posters saying, "Thank you, America." At that moment, there has to be a much more aggressive effort to rebuild societies that didn't have any civic traditions, right? You've had a despot for 40 years in place. There are no traditions there to build on.
Okay, so his biggest regret is leading from behind in Libya and then not taking a more forceful role in nation building after toppling a despotic tyrant who had ruled for decades. I'm having this weird sense of deja vu. Anybody else? So what you learned from your mistake in Libya was that your mistake in Iraq, which led to the huge mess we're in right now by cutting and running and creating a power vacuum, you would change that by doing in Libya what you said was a bad idea in Iraq and didn't do. Feel like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone. Ah!
Had only we kept 10,000 people behind in Iraq, this disorder never would have emerged.
Yeah, well, part of it is just to look at the facts. That democratic system and sovereign state, for reasons of politics that would be familiar to any politician here in the United States, decided it wasn't good politics to sign an agreement that would allow the United States troops to stay there.
Okay, now hold on. You've been trying to get away with that BS all over the place. I'm pretty sure you said something pretty similar to that to a guy named Romney last presidential election.
With regards to Iraq, you and I agreed, I believe, that there should have been a status of forces agreement. Did you?
Bottom line, you kiboshed the SOFA negotiations. They could have happened, you wanted out, so they didn't happen.
Unfortunately, we now have ISIL, which has, I think, very little appeal to ordinary Sunnis. On the other hand, they're filling a vacuum.
Wow, ISIL came in because there was a vacuum. Any ideas how that inevitable, completely foreseeable vacuum could have occurred?
The reason that we did not, for example, just start taking a bunch of airstrikes all across Iraq as soon as ISIL came in was because that would have taken the pressure off Maliki.
So what you're saying is that you didn't order airstrikes that could have saved tens of thousands of people from being slaughtered because you wanted to put some political pressure on Maliki? Boy, I wonder what your good friend Samantha Power thinks of the responsibility to protect all those pawns you just sacrificed in a failed game of power politics.
I don't want to get in the business of being the Iraqi Air Force.
Oh, so you don't want to be the Iraqi Air Force. No worries, Mr. President. That role's already filled.
Our goal should be to help usher in a new order in places like the Middle East, but that is a big, long-term, challenging project, and when you compound it with the pressures of things like climate change.
Wait a minute, did you just say that climate change is the big roadblock to Middle East peace? Seriously?
I have discovered during the course of my presidency is just because something makes sense doesn't mean it actually happens.
Did you ever consider that maybe what you think makes sense doesn't actually make sense and that's the problem? Just throwing it out there.
Former Secretary of State Dean Acheson, many years ago, wrote a famous book, President at Disintegration, about the role he played in shaping the post-World War II world. And I wonder what you feel present at right now. Do you feel present at the disintegration?
Oh, it's disintegration. I'll take that one for you, Mr. President. What I am presiding over is the inevitable outcome of weakness, kowtowing to tyrants, and leading from behind. Well, folks, that's plenty. Those two super geniuses spent over an hour wrestling with the elephant in the room, Barack Obama's foreign policy failures, and didn't manage to make that thing do a single trick.
And the men who hold high places must be the ones who start to mold a new reality closer to the heart.